Welcome to Uncompromised, the podcast where we talk about regenerative agriculture, the economics of farming, and how we can uncompromise the industry and the food that we eat. Today we're going to get into what happened on the farm this past week, and we're going to do a deep dive into the very first principle of regenerative agriculture. But before we do, consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel. We're on a mission to restore the soil on our Ohio Christmas tree farm by transitioning to fully regenerative farming practices. We're also bringing chestnuts back to Ohio, but is any of this possible? Do you want to find out? If so, I think you're in the right place. So get subscribed, learn with us, and let's talk about the next generation of farmers in America. So with that, I am your host, Kyle, and I'm here with Kevin Mullinex, who is a partner in the business and a longtime family friend, and my dad, Scott Anderson, who is the owner and founder of the farm. So we always start out the podcast with going over what we did on the farm this past week. So what are some big things that we want to talk about today?
I lived in Field 7 watering. Pretty much felt like every day. Wasn't every day, but it felt like every day.
What is Field 7 and what were you watering?
Field 7 is the regenerative pasture that we have chestnuts growing in. So 15 chestnut trees. There's 3 Americans that are just thriving.
That's always good to see because those are the ones I'm concerned about. I saw them
encouragement
from afar, a distance, yeah.
So Larry, the neighbor, actually asked me, they were out driving around, he asked me the other day, he's like, those aren't chestnuts, are they? I'm like, oh yeah, those are the Americans. And
yeah,
it's like,
doing great.
He said, they look fantastic. I was like, it's a good sign that we're doing things right.
Yeah.
Or hopefully.
Well, 3 of
Hopefully.
them.
Yeah.
3 out of the whole plantation.
3 out of 415. Yeah.
Yep. So
How long did it take you to water?
it takes about 6.5 hours to do all of them. So can't do it in a single shot because we don't have enough batteries to do it in a single shot. We also discovered that the gallons per minute has been pretty drastically flexible, I guess, or inaccurate.
Like
Yeah,
inconsistent?
That's the right word.
You,
That's the word I'm looking for. Inconsistent.
inconsistent, yeah.
Yeah. So because there's a little bit of algae in the tank, it gets clogged in all those little pores in the shower head.
Oh.
So where we were going through, like we could water the entire field in
Use about 100 gallons of
100
water.
gallons.
Yeah. And now you did what, half a field
Half the field, and it
in
was
about 150 gallons.
150.
This
Huge
tells
difference.
you how clogged that head was. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had to rethink our standard operating procedures for how often we clean the head and everything like that. And
Yeah. So we're going to do that every
at the
every
end
time.
of every time.
At the end of every watering. And,
Do you have? Can you take it apart and clean it out?
Yeah, it's just
it's
this
pretty straightforward. Just an air hose and
Phillips head screwdriver.
Yeah. clean it all out.
Yep.
So.
Easy to do.
I mean,
easy to
something
miss.
simple like that.
Yeah.
Easy to miss. And it was so slow in terms of evident that there was a problem that you just can't, we couldn't tell. And then it kind of started spraying wonky, and that's when we knew,
Yeah.
we got to probably just clean the head out. Well, it turns out that there was a lot of stuff in there.
Right. Didn't realize how bad it was though until Monday when I
We
finished.
went through so much water.
Yeah, went and I
Yeah.
did 7 rows of, so 7 rows times, is it
32.
32?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So about 220 or so
Right. And
Yeah.
went through almost the entire
tank.
tank full. And I was like, we don't even normally do that for the whole field.
Right.
Just
Hmm.
So it's
huge
good.
red flag. But it should
So
be.
we came in and did a measure of how much water is. So what he does is he has a timer, and it goes off, and we water the plant for 20 seconds, basically. And in that 20 seconds, we're putting down 70 ounces. When everything's clean, 70 ounces. After we went through the whole field, we were putting down 68.
68.
So it was getting a little bit of clogging in
Right.
it, but not much. So that's good. I mean, and that's where we wanted to be. I don't know if you remember, but when we had done this initially, I guess last year we did a check on it, and that's what we were supposed to be putting down, and that's what we will be putting down from now on. So
Right.
it's a good amount of water.
But that head hadn't been cleaned.
Well,
you,
I
you
cleaned
cleaned
it.
it
Yeah, I cleaned
at the beginning of the season.
No, I cleaned it probably 4 waterings ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So still, like you said,
Right.
there's a bit of algae that's growing in the tank, and so that's enough to clog it up.
Right.
Yeah, and so we just got to be sensitive to that. So that was good.
Yeah.
That was a good growth thing for us.
It was a nice eye opener.
Of course, standard mowing. I did mostly service roads this week, and then a little bit of mowing. We got caught up. We got fields 1 and 4 done, which are our front fields, and then we have a total of 6 fields, and we're starting back into. We'll start up on 2 and just keep going.
No.
Yeah, and we did a deep dive on the evolution and the whole process of our mowing when it comes to the Christmas tree fields. So if you're interested in that, you can check out the previous podcast, which I think was number 11.
Yeah. We did that last week.
But on the topic of mowing, did a little more research, a little more looking around at the next evolution of mowing and trying to see what we were.
Yeah. So Kyle, if you remember, as we were talking last week, we talked about what the future looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And so both of us did some research this week on what's the art of the possible. Do they make mowers like what we're looking for?
Right.
Which is basically, so we can make one pass, a mower that's on the back of our, hopefully our smallest tractor, the Kubota L2500, which is a 27 horsepower mower, but have a center mower that has 2 wings to it, and those 2 wings are spring loaded, and so they open, and then as you're coming on a tree, they close in, and then they open again, and they go around the trees. Of course, just as we said last week, you asked the question, I think, well, what about seedlings? That's a problem, and so these are what's called orchard mowers, and yeah, you just either you're going to have a seedling that is strong enough to withstand that pressure, or you're going to have to put spikes around it.
Yeah.
And that's the only option. So we did some looking in that as well. And
I think an important thing to note here is when we say like the wings go out like this, the wings can also go like this because our trees are not perfectly set in between, so they move independently, which is
which is
awesome
nice.
for what we're doing here.
So the big advantage to that is that allows us to make one pass instead of right now we're making 2 passes, and so that would cut our work in half, but it also eliminates a machine.
It does.
So that we're capitalizing on the existing diesel engine that we have on the tractor and not having to purchase yet another machine engine to run the implement.
Yeah.
Well,
So there's some advantages there, but it's a hefty price tag.
well, and that's true, but so the price of that deck is still cheaper than a new mower. By far.
Yeah. How much is the deck, the attachment?
$23,000.
So compared to if you look at what John Deere Toro offers or a commercial mower that only has an offset, one of those brand new is upwards of $42,000 or more.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're not cheap. And in their particular, I'm looking at two different kinds of units. I haven't gotten literature yet on one, but the first one and the one that seems most practical at this point is a brand called Perfect out of the Netherlands. And so I'm working with a dealer. The U.S. dealer is in Indiana, about 3 hours from here. And then the other unit, I can't remember what the brand name of that is, but they're the U.S. Again, it's a foreign made, not Chinese, but it's foreign made, and that dealer is in Iowa. So and those are the only 2 versions that I found
That's the one that comes to the Christmas Tree Association.
No, that's
Nope.
that's Jutech. I spoke with them, and they don't have one that actually does what we need.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Perfect also on their deck, they have technology, the hydraulic assist or sensor.
It's a sensor that is operated.
Yeah.
It uses hydraulics to operate to pull the
Right.
device in if it senses
Mhm.
that there's a seedling there.
Right.
Oh,
So
Which is
that's it.
kind of nice. So we don't have to stake or find.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is we don't have the L2500 doesn't have rear hydraulics.
Yeah.
Nor I don't think can you install rear hydraulics. I may be wrong on that. The L4701 Kubota tractor doesn't have rear hydraulics either, but you can install that one. Now, is the cost worth it? I don't know. I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out, but that may be our answer. If I can, if the 4701 can go down these rows.
Right.
And that's what I got to figure out.
Yeah.
So,
And another advantage to doing the 3-point is if a tractor does go down in the future, whatever, you still have the 3-point attachment mower deck, and it's cheaper to buy a new tractor than it is to buy a new mower.
or to rent one, or to borrow one,
Right.
or whatever the case is. But yeah, we could have an alternative.
yeah.
Yeah.
You also kind of lose the ability to have mom mow at
Well,
the same
it's,
time, so it brings it down to just one person.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a problem. She doesn't know that I'm thinking this, so this may be a surprise to her. But it's not hard to operate a tractor, and so she's mastered that John Deere, and I think that's a bit harder sometimes to operate than the tractor. So we got to work through those details, you know. But I'm not sure that that's where we're going yet. But that's where I'm leaning.
Isn't the Potapuki, isn't that a Netherland brand?
No, that's a Finnish brand.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a Finnish brand. Yeah.
I know I don't know, somewhere over there in Scandinavia has like a big logging industry. So
Yeah, I think the Swedes do. I wouldn't be surprised any of those would. Logging is big in Scandinavia for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, what else happened? I know we had the pool event on Tuesday for the coffee hut, which was the first time we did that type of. It was a swim meet. A lot of people there.
Yeah, that went well.
It went well.
It was. It could. What I was happy with was we could operate that with one person.
Right.
And make it work, and still is a very good event for us. So looking forward to that. We got 4 more of those events that are scheduled at this point.
Right. And I think once again, as we talk about this and we think, like, most of the time, the first thing that comes to mind is monetary gain. But once again, the whole point in the coffee hut was to be able to go out into the community and advertise and talk. And with it being the pace that it was, you still had the opportunity to talk to people and engage with people.
Right. Yeah.
And when you say advertise, you're meaning promoting the idea of regenerative agriculture.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and getting people familiar with the terminology and getting them asking questions about chestnuts and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in that regard, huge success almost every time we take it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think those hit the highlights of this week.
Real quick, if you're a coffee drinker and you're looking for a solid brand that supports regenerative farmers, check out 7 Weeks Coffee. It's what we use in our coffee and chestnut hut because they're faith-based, they have a great mission, and their Dominican blend is sourced from regenerative farms. They do not sponsor us, but because we use them in our coffee hut, we have an affiliate link that we can share with you guys. So if you use the discount code ADVENT, you'll get 10% off of your order, or you can also use the link that's in the description below. It's a great way to support our channel and our farm. You get a discount on great coffee, and then we get a kickback, so it's a win-win.
Oh, sorry. There was one more thing that we just did.
Chickens. Yep.
Oh, well, 2 things.
2 things, yeah.
So we moved the 7 Suns style nesting box, which is a nesting box that is designed as the egg is laid, it rolls down into a separate box so you can open it up and get your eggs, and they should be clean. Chickens can't poop on them, mess on them,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And then it has a roosting bar that folds up to keep the birds out at night. Seven Sons is a regenerative farm that is based in Illinois? No,
Indiana.
Indiana, just south of Chicago, I believe. Real big regenerative farm. Have a lot of really cool, innovative products that are right up our alley. We just aren't big enough or financially there to afford anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But
Good.
phenomenal nesting boxes, but moved the ones that we had in our wintering area down here out into our chicken tractor because we were going through so much hay and they were cracking them, and it was just a mess of a situation, and it needed to be done.
So the chickens were scratching out all the hay, and so we had to replace it every day.
Every day.
And so these new nesting boxes,
Don't require
they have
hay.
an AstroTurf on the bottom, and so you don't have to use hay.
It's called a nesting pad, which you can get through Premier One. Seven Sons sell them. They have them on Amazon. But it's essentially AstroTurf on steroids, kind of.
For chickens, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it just allows it to roll softly down to the bottom half.
So has that been helping at all?
Yes. I still don't know what's going on with the chickens. They're frustrating to me right now. There's still no consistency on their laying. I'm
And then we're finding some thin shells.
some thin shells.
Yeah, and so
there's-
I mean, even though you're feeding them, you're
oyster
giving
shells.
them oyster shells for them to consume as they wish,
Right.
and also you're providing calcium for them too. So I mean, we just continue to struggle with situations we've not seen before.
Right.
And now not only are they very inconsistent in the number of eggs that they're laying, and there's 60, maybe one now,
Right.
or approximately 61 hens that are laying, and we're getting 20, sometime significantly less than that, sometimes more than that, but never consistently anything like, whereas last year,
It was
and
consistent every
even
time.
here a couple months ago, it was very consistent.
Yeah.
And so, and we've talked about this a lot already. I mean,
Right.
we think that molting is a part of what's going on, but now the thin shells, and maybe that's a part of molting, and it's just part of our growth process in terms of knowing how these chickens, come out of a molting stage, and maybe they are dealing with thin eggshells until they finally get up and running again.
Yeah. Either way, it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we did is we started building out our wire mesh cages to go around the chestnut trees and started trying to get a repeatable process in place because it's going to take a while to do 200 of these.
Right. Yeah. We're going to do a third of them this year, a third next year, a third after that. But it's going to take some time, and we do that.
Yeah.
It takes some time because we've got this sheet, if you will, of field fence. It's a roll, and we got to unroll, and then we've got to cut. We're approximately 75 inches. Every one of these is 75 inches worth of fabric, if you will, and then that needs to get molded together, and then we got to cut everything with what are those
Bolt
things
cutters.
called? Bolt cutters.
Yep.
And then tie them together, use a hog tie on them, and
Yep.
and it all works. It works fine. It just
Fantastic.
takes maybe 5 minutes per.
Probably 5 minutes per.
Yeah, I mean we've gotten it down to that. Probably we can improve that a little bit, but it's going to take some time, and then we're not going to be able to store very many of them.
Right. So we'll do roughly 20 at a time. Go put them.
Yeah, I was thinking 26.
26,
Since that's 2 rows, we can knock out 2 rows at a time,
Right.
and we'll probably end up doing that just to save us some room. Yeah, but at least we've got that going, and we have a sense that, or we have a process now that
Right.
will allow us to put that together pretty quickly.
Okay.
So
So yeah, we'll probably talk more about that as
that'll
you guys
probably-
actually start putting those out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully this week we'll be able to start doing that.
Yeah, I think this would be a great week. as cool as it's going to be.
Right.
Perfect week for doing that.
So, and then picking up meat birds Monday.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So speaking of the meat birds, earlier this week, I think it was, you came up with a nice schedule for
That's right.
4 more rotations for the.
Yeah, including this one.
Yeah, we'll have 5 total,
including
but
this
we're going to do 4 more throughout the rest of this summer, leading
Right.
into the fall.
Yeah.
And so we have that all planned out, and when each of those, like when we need to put up the product page, and then when we need to pick up the baby chicks, put them in the brooder for how long, and then take them from the brooder into the tractors. And we have 2 tractors going at what will eventually be at the same time, and then so we have that all planned out, which is really nice. And I also brought this up earlier this week too, but I've run into this problem where we have, since everything is a pre-order and we have all this money sitting in our bank account, in our income account, which is already broken up into multiple envelopes per our profit first financial methods that we like to utilize. The pre-order money is sitting in the income account, so I've thought about, and I haven't done this yet, but I'll eventually open up another envelope that's specifically just for pre-order money. And then, so even for all the upcoming rotations, I can put that money into one account. And then finally, when customers come and pick up their orders, then I can move that into our OPEX account, and then we can actually use the money. But I just don't want to I don't want us to use pre-order money until the final product has shipped.
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to make sure they get what they asked for.
Yeah.
Have we thought about, decided on whether or not we're going to open up the ordering of the 4 extra, or the next 4 batches of birds? Because we can sell those now.
Oh, open them up all at the same time?
Just open it up and get all of that fulfilled, or reserved.
And that's what Joel Salatin, that's what he does in
Right.
January of every year.
That way you know in advance.
Right, right. And therefore you've got that, and it's all scheduled out and that kind of thing. So I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I think that would work just fine.
Yeah, I was initially thinking about putting up the schedule as a whole so people can see that there will be future rotations. And then at a certain time frame, I'll just open it up. So do it one by one. But we can, I don't see any problem with doing it all at the same time. I
Right.
feel like it will be similar to how we do the Christmas tree appointment reservation system, where we have 4 days of availability and we open up all 4 days at the same time. And always when we do that, the first day books up, and then it's incremental and it goes down the line.
Right.
So I imagine this would be similar, where people will always choose the soonest available option, and then it'll book up later on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's fine too.
Could you do it where you have the available dates on a calendar and you just click on the date, and then that's the date that they buy their bird, or want their
Yeah,
birds?
I can do
Guess
something
that
similar
doesn't
to
really
that.
matter to us right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be a wise thing, because then we know in advance.
Right.
Right.
I would just have to, I think I would have to like somehow market it on a regular basis. Like I would probably do one more email, and then I'll probably post every other week on the social accounts, just to remind people we still have
Time to get their bird.
yeah, we
Right.
have the August opening if you want your meat birds or something like that.
Yeah.
But
I think the other thing we did this week was we started researching ice machines.
oh yeah.
And really working hard on finding what's going to work for us as we get into the process of butchering these birds.
No.
We need a sufficient amount of ice to do that, and I think having an ice machine is going to really help make
Right.
that work for us a little bit better.
Well, an ice machine would be multi-purpose for us. So we would not only use it for eviscerating the chickens, but we also would use it for the coffee hut, because we go through, especially in the summertime, we go through ice lattes, and we have to buy that ice from, gas stations or wherever, and it's really expensive. So since we get to use it for both of those aspects, I think it'll pay it for itself pretty quickly. So that's a good investment.
Yeah, I think so. And then we've got an old freezer that we're gonna use to store the ice as we make it, so that we've got a ready supply that we can go after at any time, whether it be for the birds or for the chestnut.
Right.
Where do you guys get the ice bags from?
Well, right now I'm going to that Shell station just down the road from Abbey, and I think they have the highest price I've ever seen.
Right.
Yeah, because I was picking them up from the Marathon, which is across the street from that Shell station.
The
And
certified?
they changed the name to Marathon, but yeah, the certified.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you remember what you were paying for that?
So the large bag was like $6.75, something like that.
Oh.
So
Shell's a $6 for a
Yeah.
20-pound bag.
So
And
it's
I about had a heart attack when I paid that. So
it's expensive regardless. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, that's right.
$6 a bag is crazy. So
Yeah.
that'll pay for itself in no time.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
yeah. All right.
So real quick, guys, I want to mention that if you enjoy podcasts on other platforms outside of YouTube, we are on Rumble, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So if you're interested in subscribing over on those platforms, those are available. Links are in the description below. Okay, so another thing I kind of wanted to mention before we move on, we don't have to name names or go into a huge amount of detail, but is regarding our coffee hut. We've run into kind of an issue with a regular location that we go to in West Milton. And so during the week, we go to this location a few times, and we've been doing this since we started, since we opened up the coffee hut. And it's been
May of last year.
it's been really good for us because it allows us to have a routine going on so people know where we're at on certain days of the week, and we can so we can sell in the town of West Milton on a regular basis. And that location is kind of dwindling in availability for us, so we might have to think about other opportunities there, which is kind of a big problem because we only really have 2 main regular locations, and if one of those is kind of going away, then we're going to have to think about what we're going to do there. So that's something that kind of keeps me up at night a little bit, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it, but
Right.
it's also, I feel like that's a common problem with food vendors that they have to go through. Like finding locations is such a pain.
Yeah.
Especially free locations too, that
this
doesn't
is
charge us.
something that you and I talked about on the phone yesterday.
Yeah.
Is looking forward to the day where the coffee hut only leaves the farm to go to events that we choose to support, and then we actually just run the coffee hut here on the farm.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that day so we don't have to deal with this headache. And
Yeah, it's like long-term
being
thinking.
frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about potentially revisiting the Brookville as a town because we were running out of other options and paying that ridiculous fee, which is something we talked about on a previous podcast that was also frustrating us. And
Yep.
now we have to pick and choose our battles there. But I don't know, maybe we can talk about that a little bit or talk through that at some point and come up with a solution there. But
All right.
Yeah. So it's not regenerative.
so, the very first, we have 5 principles of regenerative agriculture, and we're going to do a deep dive on the first one, the very first one, which is minimize soil disturbance. And that is the first one. The second one, just to run through these real quick, is the second one is maximize plant diversity. Third is maintain soil coverage. Fourth is integrate livestock. And the last one is avoiding chemicals and artificial fertilizers. So to zoom in on the minimal soil disturbance and how and why that is a very important principle when it comes to implementing regenerative farming practices. Where do you want to start with that? We should probably start with the definition. You think?
Yeah, probably ought to define what we mean by that, I would think. And I think when I hear minimize soil soil disturbance, basically in my mind, what that is telling me is that we want to limit or eliminate any mechanical tilling, plowing, subsoiling, anything that's going to disrupt the soil structure. Mm-hmm. That in my mind is a kind of a working definition of
Yeah, including
what that
compaction, because that's the one I think about a lot when we run over it with tractors and heavy equipment. You're compacting it, which is also a form of disruption.
Right.
No. It's a harder one to avoid.
Right.
But
you kind of have to do it at some point to an extent, but you can,
yeah,
if you're aware of it, and you can minimize it a little bit more.
Yeah. And so if that's the working definition, And if we all agree that that's a reasonable definition, then it seems logical to me that we talk about why is it important? I mean, so you disrupt the soil. And actually that, why that's so important in my mind is that it's doing a couple things. It's disrupting the soil structure,
Mm-hmm.
which is a critical aspect that we will talk a little bit more about. But it's also releasing carbon
Right.
into the atmosphere. It's when you disrupt the soil, not only are you tearing down the soil aggregation, but you're also destroying the microbiology that has been growing in that area. And then, like you said, you're compacting that soil.
Yeah.
So those are reasons why this is a problem for us. But that causes me to think, when you think about, well, wait a minute now, history-wise,
Been doing it for years and years.
I mean, thousands of years.
Years.
So why is that? Why all of a sudden today do we have a better answer than our fathers before us, who we've been standing on their shoulders for everything we do for eons of years? What changed? And, because intuitively, I don't know about you guys, but intuitively to me, it makes sense to till.
Yeah.
Or at least plow.
Right. To aerate the soil.
It's aerating the soil, or at least it seems like it's
Right.
aerating the soil. When it rains, goes right into the soil.
Yeah,
See?
you just put water that far into the soil. You're doing great.
Yeah,
thing.
see, so intuitively, you would think that makes sense. And then what else? And this, and I had to research this. I didn't realize this. But when you do that, your plants are more productive. They grow faster and better, and you get more yield
Initially.
Yes. Initially.
What
And-
is tilling exactly, and when do you do that in the process?
Well, plowing is kind of the first thing you do. So like if you're going to bust up some sod, a grassy area, then you're going to take a one bottom plow, or if you have a big enough tractor, two bottom, three bottom, you're going to throw that soil over. And a plow is just simply going to go through and it's going to throw it over. And you do that enough to break up an initial sod field. Okay. Tilling is once that soil has been kind of tilled up or plowed up,
Turned over.
and it's ready to be planted, you're going to go through and you're going to till it. And what you're doing is you're breaking it up even further. And so oftentimes we think of that as disking. And I may be a little bit wrong on my terms here. A real farmer who has done this their whole life will know way better than I do. But from a layman's point of view, tilling I think is just breaking up that soil that's already been busted up into finer clumps, and makes it more uniform so that you can plant. You can plant seed with an even field.
So you do this before you plant the seed,
Yeah.
and this is almost entirely done with conventional farming methods.
Right. Now there's no till.
Right.
There's tillage, and then what's been popular for the past many decades is no till.
Yeah.
And again, what they're trying to do is minimize the disruption of the soil.
Right, because you're still disrupting the soil. You still have equipment compacting it.
Yep.
You still have, even on our conservation seeder, you still have spikes that penetrate into the soil or into the organic layer.
Right.
So you're still disturbing. You're just minimizing
That disturbance.
the damage that you're doing.
Yeah, because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to get that soil to seed contact.
Correct.
Which you've got to have. So there's different ways, but yeah, from a historical point of view, the whole idea of actually subsoiling first, which is just a great big, sometimes it's a 24-inch spike that you go and you just dig through the plow pan and all that stuff to really dig up the soil. Then you're going to throw it over with the plow. Then you're going to go through and you're going to till it up. And in every one of those cases, you're getting it from these big bulky soil structures down to something nice and fine and uniform so that you can plant on it.
Right.
In layman's terms, I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're taking a bunch of fruit and throwing it in a blender and getting puree.
Yeah. And that's why, for tractors in terms of soil compaction, that's why you see tractors that have these massive wheels on them. What they're trying to do is to minimize that footprint or maximize the footprint to minimize the actual soil compaction.
Right.
You're spreading that weight of that piece of equipment over a broader footprint that is actually touching the soil.
Right. So it's crazy to think that, like, if you get one of those big tractors out there that's massive, it's got these massive tires, and it has less pounds per square inch than you do walking in your tennis shoes in that field.
On that field.
Yeah. It can probably run over your foot and you wouldn't,
I don't know about that.
you wouldn't break anything.
I don't want to try
I'm not
that.
going to test that.
I'm not going to test that.
But in theory, that may be true.
I think I actually have seen a video where they ran over an egg. They put it on the ground and they ran over an egg with those giant tires and it was fine.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Must have been a guinea egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little tiny
Not
things
our
are
eggs
so
at
dense.
all.
Yeah, not our eggs. Well, our guinea eggs,
They're
man,
so
they are
dense.
so hard. But anyway, yeah, that makes good sense. Yeah, so history-wise,
It makes sense.
as we think about that does make sense. Well, so what's changed? Why all of a sudden now do we think we have kind of the answers to what for thousands of years has been a common practice? Well, and this may not be, fully thought through and all that kind of good stuff, but I think over the past, many, many decades, past 50, 60, 70, 80 years, whatever that time period is, relative to thousands of years,
Right.
we have now been able to study soil at the microscopic level,
Right.
which has allowed us to better appreciate what's going on in the ecosystem of that soil. And so soil is really an ecosystem made up of minerals, water, oxygen, organic matter, microbes, bacteria, fungus, and when you combine all of them working in symbiosis with one another, you create this ecosystem that allows the structure or that allows the soil to supply all the needs that the plant is looking for without providing artificial chemicals and the like.
Right.
So the soil, which is really the foundation of all the life on the planet, is itself its own thriving, living ecosystem. It's basically its own
Correct.
organism. I know I'm using incorrect terminology here, but it's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, and that's essentially right. And see, I don't know that we fully appreciated that before we were able to really look into and see how fungi, which develop these networks that interact with the root systems and interact with the bacteria, all actually help the plant.
Right.
And now we can see that. There's all kinds of instruments that we have available to us today, and a lot of research in this area that we didn't have before. So we're recognizing that, wait a minute, what was working did work, and it worked great. But what was happening was it was depleting the soil. And when you deplete the soil, then you've got to use artificial of some sort, and that's what happened in the 40s and 50s. When World War II finished, we had all of this excess chemicals, and they found that made excellent fertilizers or pesticides. And when I use the term pesticide, I'm meaning insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, all that is captured in that word pesticide. And so, we naturally gravitated toward that as a tradition.
Well, yeah, because that's how Daddy did it.
Because that's how Daddy did it.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with tilling your soil or plowing your soil. That's the way Dad did it.
Right.
And so, and when I went into the Christmas tree operation, and I've said this before, I saw how everybody else was doing it, and that's how I did it.
Right.
So it took a little bit of, it took some courage for folks to move away
Right. to
from the
push against
standard
grain.
tradition. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
Yep. And
So
it's
fortunately, we're not pushing against the grain nearly as hard as others have had to do.
Right. Yeah.
oh no. not
But
at
yeah,
all.
and so I think the history is an important part of this to help understand how did we get here and why had we done this before?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so um, yeah, it's just interesting that you have, I mean, the tilling is essentially it's good in the short term, and then it becomes a long-term problem
Right.
over time once that soil becomes more depleted and it has less ability to retain water and all that kind of stuff. It leads to erosion, and you see that over decades and decades of time. And then you have new problems that you have to solve for, and then you end up relying on chemicals to solve those problems, which is big business. And then now you have a whole industry that's evolving and growing around a new problem that's been created. But that also just creates additional problems, and so you have big business come in and fix those additional problems, and it just ends up being a big conglomerate. And then now
Yeah.
you're stuck into this system that
Right. And on top of that, you have state and federal policies and regulations that drive that kind of behavior also.
yeah, and all that is just leading to more problems and all kinds of things in it. So it's this rough cycle, and that's kind of where we've ended up. But now I think these problems are kind of becoming so prevalent, especially when it comes to soil erosion and taking out all these essential nutrients in the soil that these plants pull from, and then it no longer is retained in our food that we eat. And now people are getting sick, and so as you can see, those are even more problems that you have to deal with. And so here we are, trying to go back to the way things were before, and trying to really go back to the basics and start over and figure out that we need to take better care of our soil, and we need to stop relying on these chemicals to put a Band-Aid on all these problems that we're experiencing. So we're really going back to the roots of things, going back to the foundation and starting over, essentially. And that also means that there's a lot, like I would say the whole country is, like you alluded to this, where they're in this mindset where, your dad did this before, and so this is the way that we must do things. So now you have to rewire people's minds and get them interested in a new system of farming, which is a whole other problem. So I feel like the cards are just constantly stacked against farmers, and this is another I don't know, wave of cards that you have to work through,
Well,
so to speak.
yeah, I think it's not, we're not trying to throw shade at the way that conventional farming is done right now, because it's this system that's been going on for years and years and years, and it's so hard. You can't just jump off the wheel and expect to continue to move forward.
It's very incremental.
It's
Well, and part of the reason
incremental.
why you can't do that is, I mean, that's all they know. So and that's what the vast majority of educational institutions are teaching. Now
Gotten better.
that's changing. Now I do understand
Yep.
it's changing, but that's part of it as well. And also, I mean, thousands of dollars have been invested in equipment.
Millions.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah,
cases.
millions.
Millions.
And so everything is stacked against that poor farmer
Right.
to change the way they've been doing business.
Right.
And as we talked about in one of our first podcasts was the terrible cost that you actually have to pay to move away from traditional or standard farming practices to regenerative farming practices. It's not easy, and it's not cheap,
No.
and it's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah, it has to be incremental.
Very much so.
Well, in many cases, I don't think you can get out of it, because a lot of these farmers have deep contracts with these companies that are either companies that allow them access to those equipment that they need to harvest their thousands of acres and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of in debt in that way, and they are locked into these contracts. They owe big money, and they have to have these cycles of big harvests come through, because they rely on that. and it can't break out of that cycle, which is another problem, even if they wanted to break out of it.
And they're dependent on, I mean, they can't make a go of it typically. On average, most farms can't make a go of it on their own in farming. And so they receive supplements, government supplements.
Yeah.
And so that's, once you get on that, it's hard to get off that train, so to speak. And
Yep.
not that that's a bad thing, but it's just reality in farming in the United States today.
Right.
Is you've got to deal with those issues. And so we're trying to institute regenerative agriculture here on this farm anyway, so that we're not dependent on any of that. So we talked about, what the definition is, why it's important, what's the history, what's the benefit? In terms of minimizing soil disturbance, what are the benefits that offers us?
Nice. So I think there's a few, because we've talked about this a lot, and I think one of the big ones that I think of, other than, not relying on chemicals and everything like that, is you're self-sufficient at this point.
Yeah, but in terms of minimizing soil disruption,
so
what's the benefit of that? Why is that a good thing?
Well, you're not killing all of the life in the soil.
Right.
Huge. We've talked about this several times, is your ability to actually retain water in your soil.
Yeah, so the way I would think about that is you're protecting the soil structure.
Yep.
And that's the soil aggregates. And what is a soil aggregate? It's basically kind of a spongy, it's a porous soil structure that allows water to be retained, which gets to your point.
It's your chocolate cake.
Okay, your chocolate cake.
Right? Because it's
porous,
spongy, rich, wet.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
And good.
It's your chocolate cake.
And delicious. Yeah.
No, that's...
But yeah, so I think that's one piece of it.
Yep.
There's probably another piece, another benefit that's substantial as well. And that is storing carbon.
The carbon cycle.
Yeah, it's storing carbon. So why is that a big deal?
That's essential to life on Earth.
Oh my good. So, and there's lots of statistics out there that talk about this, but you think about greenhouse emissions and that kind of thing, and carbon dioxide and how much of that is in the atmosphere. The vast majority of carbon emissions doesn't come from man-made devices like cars and industry, though that contributes
cow farts.
significant. But that's methane, not quite the same thing.
Well, it's a greenhouse gas, and
it is a greenhouse gas.
They like to blame all the problems on cow farts.
Yeah. But the reality is, it's from tilling or plowing or on the land.
Yeah,
because
releases of carbon.
It's and I had no idea it was this amount, but it's massive amounts of carbon is released into the soil every time we see somebody out here plowing their field. And it's just so what is the benefit of minimizing soil disruption? We've already talked about protecting the soil structure, but the other is it's storing carbon. It's a sink for carbon. And what that does is your CO2 emissions and those kinds of your greenhouse emissions, those things are absorbed into the soil.
Yeah, you're sequestering it out from the atmosphere and storing it into the soil.
And what benefit does that
offer? Which is then used for life, essentially, or growth.
Right. Yeah. So what I didn't realize was it's a building block for organic matter in the soil. It's a building block that allows that organic matter to develop the bacteria that are necessary and the microbes and the fungi and all that kind of good stuff, so that they work together to provide the nutrients into the plant. That was pretty cool. Didn't realize that. But the other thing is nutrient cycling. So it actually is a kind of a slow release. It serves as a slow release to all kinds of nutrients, your macronutrients and your micronutrients, that allow them to be uptake, or how's that for English? For the plant to uptake those nutrients into their system. And
Which in
that's a
turn, the
wonderful thing,
food and stuff that
which
we
gives
eat.
us nutrient dense food. So one of the things that, we talked about the fact that with tilling the soil and standard practices, you see better production, rapid growth, those kinds of things. With regenerative agriculture, you're not going to see rapid growth like you see with a tilled plantation or whatever. You're not going to see the rapidness. You're not going to see maybe the quality of growth. But what you are going to see is nutrient dense food.
Right. You're
Because
not
of
gonna
the
have the same
nitrogen.
yield.
You're not going to have the same yield. It's going to be less.
Yeah.
Almost every time it'll be less,
Right.
but it's going to be better. And that's the key.
Right. Quality over quantity.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not for everybody, but what you do get out of regenerative agriculture, I think, is pretty significant.
So, and this is another principle. And this is something that we wrestled here, and kind of why we stumbled upon this entire venture was diversifying the income of the farm. So instead of just relying on crop, now you have animal involvement, everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things, I think about. So if you kind of think about those things all together, I think there's two examples of how in our farm, because I want to now bring this to our farm.
Right.
How does this apply to us? Because we've talked a little bit about, the definition, and we talked about the why, and we talked about the history and the benefit and all that kind of good stuff. So what? What does that have to do with our farm? And so two stories I wanted to share with you guys. And one of them I shared on a previous episode, but I want to bring it back up again. And that is when we first got here, and I was with my brother, and we were driving around thinking about we were going to lay out the Christmas tree farm and all that kind of good stuff. We noticed that where the crop was, and at the time there was corn. No, my bad. At that time, that there is the one year they planted wheat here. And they planted wheat, and so they did the cold season wheat in the ground, and so it was up during the winter. It was up maybe 3-4 inches or so. But we could tell as we were driving around, I can tell a significant dip where they had been plowing and planting for years and years, and where we were on one of our service roads that had been a service road for years before us. And that dip was erosion.
Yeah.
That had happened. And you shared an example of, as you were driving home, there's a field to your left as you're going north toward West Milton, that you see the same thing where it's a significant difference in height. That's erosion. That's where that topsoil has been blown away.
it's all your organic, all your carbon.
And the topsoil is really what we're talking about here, and that's probably the most important part of it, because 95% of all the food that you eat is grown in topsoil.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a real statistic.
Yeah, and so we saw that. We saw that evident here. But then the second story is the one we were all involved in. When we went out, as we first were starting in Field 7, we wanted to go out there, and a test that you perform to help, one of the many indicators of how healthy is your soil, is the water infiltration test.
Yeah, we did so well.
Oh, well, yeah. How long does it take water to infiltrate the soil?
Yeah.
So what we did was we took some cans out there, and we did some measurements, and we put an inch of water in the soil. We did this in 3 different spots in Field 7, and the results were horrendous. One took over 10 minutes
To absorb.
to absorb 1 inch. Actually, it was only a ½ inch of soil or a ½ inch of water that it absorbed. The other 2 places, it varied. One was like 7.5 minutes, and another one was around 8 minutes or so. But that's terrible.
Right. I'd like to redo that test.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But remember, we had no ground cover.
Yeah.
There, and we had very, very little organic matter.
Right.
And that's one of the things I've looked at over the years. And there's good research done in this area where in this area of Ohio, Southwest Ohio, there were as much as 8 to 10 inches of organic matter in the on the soil. And today that's down to less than an inch. That field didn't have much of any organic matter at all. And of course that requires a soil test to actually determine what the percentage is. I've been doing that for our farm for years, and I've never seen anything greater than 1 inch of organic matter in our topsoil.
Have we done that?
Not
since you
recently on
started?
7. No, we need to, but I wanted to go through
Yeah,
the regenerative,
process.
this process, and we're well on our way.
Right.
Now we've got I think a great amount of organic matter sitting on top. It's not broken down yet. A lot of it is getting broken down, but it's not there yet. So I want to give it time to do that. But I would be interested in seeing what the water infiltration test says now,
Right.
where that should go down in less than a minute.
Yeah.
1 inch of water in less than a minute should go right down into your ground. And so that means that you've got good soil aggregation.
I think
and
we've
you've got a good ecosystem going.
I think we've already seen that when we go water chestnuts and everything.
Oh,
like
yeah, and it
that.
goes right in the ground.
Straight
Yeah,
in, no
yeah.
runoff.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
This past spring and many springs before it, we usually get, I mean, it's pretty typical. You get like a series of rain events that happen back to back. And this past spring was no different. And we got a ton of rain all at once. And all you have to do is just drive around and look at the fields around us. And there's so much flooding that's involved or that happens as a result of that rainfall, because these fields are just unable to kind of absorb that water quickly, which is another big benefit, when it comes to flash flooding and those big rain events. If you have a field that can really absorb the water naturally, and you don't have to rely on the I don't know what you call those agricultural drainage tiles, and you don't have to rely on that, and it'll absorb quickly and all that. And not only that, but if you then have a drought that comes after that rain, then your everything, all your crops and stuff will be much healthier in that drought, and they'll be able to survive it a lot more efficiently.
Well, here about 6 years ago, and 5, 6, 7 years, I don't remember exactly when, we had a terrible amount of rain that occurred at one time. And Putnam, the road behind us here, all those houses drain into one house or yard that drains right into our field in field 7. And then it was a river of water. And I mean, it was coming fast through our property and exits out over here by our neighbor and out their way. And it was all moving in a very large amount of water that was coming through. We had the same kind of situation happen 2 weeks ago. On Wednesday, we got 4.1 inches of rain in 3 hours. And so it was a deluge. And that didn't happen out there.
Not at all.
Not even at all. Didn't happen. And I attribute a great amount of that to the fact that our soil absorbed that water.
Right.
Yeah, amazing. And if you remember when we were out there and we were mulching,
Yep.
how nice and moist that whole side was over there.
Oh,
It was just amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah, so I think we're seeing benefits already of how this has been helping us.
Right. I mean, that 4 inches of rain, we talked about that on the podcast because that's when Nicole was here. Nicole called and asked you for directions.
Yeah,
how
because
to
she
get
couldn't
home.
get home.
Because
Yep.
all the roads were flooded.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
So the funny thing about that is that I didn't even know. So normally I know if we've had a bad rain because I can't take the side-by-side on the trail to the farm.
Right.
That morning I took the trail and I was like, oh, it doesn't look like it was that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got here and I looked at the rain gauge and I was like, oh my.
Yeah. It's just amazing.
Yeah. The proof is in the pudding.
It actually is. So maybe one other thing we can talk about then is how have we put this into practice here on our farm? So what about field 7? How do you think, what have we done in field 7 to help us not or to minimize the destruction of the soil.
So, I mean, we already talked about one, the cultivation cedar.
Okay. So explain what that is. It's conservation cedar.
Yep. So it's our cedar, which we use to put down winter, summer, and our perennial pasture mix. And it's a cedar that goes.
The seed for the cover crop. Yeah, putting the seed down. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 3-point attachment that goes on the back of the tractor. And what makes it special is that it has little tiny spikes on a drum that as you rotate, the idea is that it spreads just enough or penetrates just enough to get that seed to soil contact or to get it to penetrate the organic mat that's on top.
Yeah, so there's 2 drums, but you said teeny tiny. I want to make sure people understand teeny tiny is like 3 inches.
Teeny tiny is in terms of agriculture implements.
It's about this, the spike is about this long, about this wide.
It's not something you would want to run your foot over with.
Oh no. Yeah, it would pin you right to the ground
Right.
if you did that. But it's a big spike.
Right, but when you compare that to
Any of the big agricultural
any of the big
equipment, it is a teeny tiny
agricultural,
thing,
yeah.
but I just wanted people to know that it's
Right.
bigger than what they might think.
But it does exactly what we needed to do for our application, and that is minimize soil disturbance while effectively putting your seed onto your land.
Yeah, right.
Right?
So the past 3 years out there in field 7, what we call field 7, it's not been touched with a plow, with tillage, nothing.
Right.
Nothing has disrupted that soil in the past several years.
Right.
Whereas before it was routinely every year, because sometimes they operated no-till, like when they put soybean down. I think they would use no-till practice, but then they'd come right around and put the corn in
I thought it was
and till it right up.
the other way.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, could be, but
I could be wrong. You've lived here longer. You
bless you, young man. But either way, it was tilled sometimes, not
Right.
tilled sometimes. But
Either
the point
way.
is, in the past 3 years, we've not done anything
Right.
to disrupt that soil, other than those spikes that roll on it. And the only reason they do that is for seed to soil contact, so you can improve that.
Right.
But they roll right over that that nice organic matting that we have that's slowly getting broken down.
Right.
Yep.
So, and then the other way that we have minimized, because there's certain things that you do that you have to disturb the soil. There's no way around it.
Right. And that's when you actually plant.
And that is when we plant the chestnuts.
Yeah.
And we talked about this in the Christmas tree planting. I talked about it with planting chestnuts, but is it the 3-inch auger bit?
Yeah, 3-inch auger bit.
Yep, on a power drill. So that way you're only disturbing 3 inches by, I don't know, 5 to 6 inches.
Yeah, about
worth
6
of
inches
soil.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
what you're
difference
disturbing.
between the planting of chestnuts is that this is because a chestnut is a tree, we plant it as a seedling, so it's already about a foot tall with an established root system. So you have to drill a hole, as opposed to the conservation cedar that you were talking
Correct.
about, where you're just laying down seed.
Yeah, great.
So there's a difference
Great
between how we plant chestnuts versus other potential crops.
So that is a soil disruption, though. When we're putting the chestnut seed in, we are disrupting the soil 3 inches by 6 inches. But what we're putting in there is a complete root and soil all together in a disposable bag that'll biodegrade. So you're minimizing the disruption of the soil around that seedling, so that the roots aren't disturbed and all that kind of good stuff. But then that goes right into the soil, and then we put it back. So you can't avoid that. If you're going to plant something into the ground, you have to disrupt the soil to do that. We're just not doing it across the entire field that we have out there. So we're trying to minimize as much as we can.
Yeah.
Disrupting
and
the soil.
I don't know how you can possibly get any less disruptive than the way we're doing it.
Right.
Because those holes can't get any smaller. And
No, it
And the
is the
hole is
size of the plug.
It's the same size.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just sits right down in there. So all that soil around it is not disturbed
Yep, and then you
either.
just-
So it works out well, I
Right.
think. And like you said, our water absorption has been tremendous.
Yeah.
So we're good. We're good
So
with that.
And then we have an upcoming, I believe next summer or the summer after, we have an upcoming project where we will again have to do further soil disruption. And that's when we put in water line to get out there so we can water the cattle.
Water the cattle, yeah.
Which originally we talked about doing an excavator or backhoe, which would be a tremendous amount of soil disruption, and it's overkill.
Right.
So what we landed on is using a trencher,
Yep.
which is, for those who don't know, it is the one we're going to use. It's a small walk behind one, and it's essentially a chainsaw that is designed to dig out about a 3 to 4 inch trench that you can just lay your water line in.
Yeah.
And then
cover it right back up.
Cover it right back up. So once again, it's not there's plenty of times where it's unavoidable to disturb the soil, but minimize it is the key word.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we use the term minimize in principle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely still important to think about, but that is just like a one-time thing that you do, as opposed to, seasonal where you do it 1 to 2 times a year, every single year, over and over and over again. Right. So it's not nearly as bad or as permanent as that.
Now we don't have any more room to expand our Christmas tree operation, to expand it beyond what the 6 fields that we currently have.
Right.
If we had, then what we've done in the past is we would ridge, and so that literally is taking a single bottom plow, running it one way and throwing the soil over. Then you come back the opposite way and you throw another layer over. You talk about maximum disruption of the soil.
Right.
But even before you start doing that, you got to run a subsoiler through there to break it up.
Right, because it's so hard.
Because
of
the plow
compaction.
That clay pan is so hard that you got to break that up. Now we've learned since then that there's other ways that you can do that besides using a subsoiler, like planting rye or planting alfalfa. Super deep root systems, large root systems, so they break the soil up just as nicely, actually, and it's much less invasive on the soil. But still, we did that. That's how we would prepare our field, and then we'd go through and roll that down so it's nice and uniform, but it's a nice ridge. And then plant our seeds or our seedlings right on that ridge.
Right.
Now, today, instead of using a 6, an 8 inch, or a 9 inch, and we used every one of those drill auger bit, we now use a 3 inch auger bit or even a 2 inch, depending on what size plug we're putting in. And again, minimum disruption to the soil.
Right. Yeah.
So all that's been how on this farm we've been exercising the use of that principle.
And that's, I don't know, there's a lot of benefits to it beyond just the soil health, though. Once again, we talked about this, it's less wear and tear on us.
Oh, yeah.
For everything.
Less equipment wear and tear.
Less equipment, less everything.
Yeah, less amount of labor that's needed.
Right.
Yeah, it has so many benefits, but that's how that's been helpful for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it may seem like, I don't know, small gains for such a lot of, I guess another way to think about it is like the soil, especially in the context that we're talking about, is so important because 7.5% of all the land on Earth is only used for agriculture. So you can only harvest food agriculturally on only 7.5% of the land on Earth. Because everything else is either going to be your forests, like your Amazon forests, or deserts, or any other mountains.
Mountains, yeah.
Or
so Arctic or Antarctic. Those.
So you really have to make it count, and the soil is just so important for everything.
That's a really low number. 7.5% of
right.
your total land surface area is used for agriculture.
I think I think I originally heard this from Joel Salatin, and I'm butchering it the way I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said something about how soil, all the problems that we're facing with soil, like erosion and water retention and all that, indirectly kind of lead to most, if not all, the problems that we're facing in society in very indirect ways. But I just think that like any problem you're taking, you can kind of backtrack it and it somehow leads back to soil. He did a much better way of saying that, but I do think that it rings true to a certain degree. And if you solve the soil issues, then it just cascades. And I think it'll just end up solving a lot of problems, in other areas that you may not think about.
So it tends to be kind of the root of the problem, so to speak. No, no
Are
pun
you having
intended.
fun there with your dad jokes? I'm just so proud. He was waiting
You
for
almost
it.
made it throughout the whole podcast without a corny joke.
Oh, that was a good one, though. You have to admit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a lot. And I'm sure we can there's so many other rabbit holes that you can go down if we had more, I don't know, knowledge or background on it. But I know that I'm reading a book right now called The Soil Science for Regenerative Agriculture, or something like that. But it goes really deep into that's where I'm pulling out some of these percentages facts from.
Right.
But it goes really deep into the scientific side of soil and the microbes and, all that, the biology of everything. And it's a really long book, but it's pretty good. And yeah, I don't have the brain power or the knowledge to talk in that regard, but I don't know. This is kind of a surface level, conversation about soil.
Yeah.
It's a deep dive for us.
Yeah.
Right,
For
pretty
sure.
much.
Yeah.
And this is all stuff that we've just learned kind of over the past few years
Right.
anyway, so.
Right.
Right. Here in a couple years, we can have the same conversation.
Yeah, and kind of do a check-in and see how.
Checking to see how much we forgot.
Yeah.
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 As opposed to how much we should have learned.
So if you want to make sure you're here for that, make sure you subscribe and go ahead and like this video if you made it this far. Anything else you want to mention?
Nope. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think everything else that I would have is for a different point in the conversation.
Yeah, we'll do multiple. We'll do one of these videos for every principle that we want to talk about when it comes to regenerative agriculture. So,
yeah.
All right, guys, that's it. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.